Hi folks, welcome back to the Horde. So somewhere around 2:30, 27.2 degrees, 72% humidity. It is steamy out here. I am drippy hot. This says it is July 18th, Saturday, 81.1 degrees. Once again, it is humid. My Energizer isn't charged up. There it is in the back. I've been asked a few questions about DC circuitry, particularly, I forgot who asked it. I was asked about a 200X that a guy has. He tested the bulbs, and the bulbs work, and he checked his output. I think he checked his output from the Stator, and he says he's got voltage there. How come he's got good light bulbs and he's got good voltage out of the Stator, and he's got no lights? And particularly with the 200X, and we'll take a look at that guy in a moment. The 200X uses body ground. This is your basic Stator. You have two windings. One goes to the ignition, one goes to lighting. And basically, one side of the Stator, for both Stators, one side is grounded, as you can see, which means if I wanted to take a reading to see what the ohm value of the Stator was, I would put one lead on ground and the other lead on the Stator. And it's nice and convenient right at this location here. There's a little plug so you can unplug the Stator and figure out what you want to do. That also makes it easy because you could... my camera keeps liking to turn the image upside down on me, then it makes it hard for me to figure out what I'm doing because everything's upside down. Anyway, but what you could also do is if you unplug the Stator, and for the light side, not the engine side, the lighting side, you can hook a battery charger up to it and see if your lights go on. One thing to be very much aware of, your Stator could be blown, cooked, charred. But if you take the load off of it, if you take the light load off of it, and you put a meter up against it, and you measure from ground, right, to there, with a digital voltmeter, right, you know, your Harbor Freight basic piece of crap, and you ask how many volts is it giving you, even with a blown Stator, there's a good possibility you'll see some kind of voltage. Why? Because there's no load on it and it's just a voltage. It's not a current, right? If you're trying to, normally to light up lights, you need 12 volts and you also need a couple of amps worth of current. So you might have the voltage, but when you're trying to push them through those lights over there, you don't have the current to do it. And if you were to measure the voltage while trying to light the lights up, you would realize that that the voltage would go to zero when you put the lighting load under it. Yet once again, you have a potential, but you got nothing behind it. You got no amperage behind it. Anyway, what I've done is I'm going to show you two things. First of all, I'm going to show you the ohm value. So we're going to put one clamp on the body and we're going to put the other one in the connector, and you're going to see that this Stator has a resistance of somewhere around an ohm and a half, no more than that. The other thing I'm going to do is, while I have this connection broken and we're measuring from here to here, I'm also going to put 12 volts from there, right, to ground, and I'm going to show you that the headlight lights up. This particular bike that I'm working on, showing you, the tail light is missing because the whole back of the bike is missing. Okay, So, as I warned you before, you can see one lead is hooked to the engine, and the other lead is hooked to the yellow, right? And the yellow is where the AC comes out of there, and I got mosquitoes biting me, and you can see if you look down at my meter, 1.9 ohms, and you say that's not equal to less than an ohm. Well, the meter itself, when you zero it out, and let me do that for you, so 1.9, and you got to subtract from it 1.3, right, because I got it shorted out now. You subtract 1.3, and you get somewhere around 0.6, you know, it's flipping back and forth, 0.7 ohms. So, once again, the stator should be less than 1 ohm. You also will notice that, once again, I broke this connection here, yellow to yellow. I got the positive for the battery charger here hooked to it, and I got the negative to the body. See it right here. And if I turn it on, you'll see my headlight is on. I think you guys can tell that it's on, right? High and low, and there's off. Once again, high, low. So, you notice, once again, I'm showing you two wires, right? I'm showing you yellow, which is the power for the lighting circuit, right? And I'm showing you red, black down here. That's the power for the ignition circuit. If, let's say, you're on the road and for some reason your ignition coil goes bad, can you just swap those wires and see if it will run? You could try it, right? You're on the side of the road doing nothing. You might as well do something to burn the time. And will it run? It might. Especially if the engine's already warm and it doesn't take much spark to ignite itself and run, it might run. But typically the ignition coil, the ignition stator, has more windings on it, so you get a little higher voltage, less current but a higher voltage, and then that higher voltage is multiplied kind of stacked up, let's say, in the CDI box, and then when it goes through the coil, it's stacked up even higher, right? And then you get a spark out of it. So, will the other one work? It might fire up. William Statton made a comment that he had a bike that he calls Pinky running on one of the stator coils and all. The ignition system for something with charging is a bit different. Typically they have multiple stator windings depending on how many phases you have. By phases, it's just as the flywheel's going around, how many times on the flywheel you're producing power per time it goes around. For 1 RPM with that guy, it would be single phase, right? You only have one winding. If you have 2 winding, it's 2 phase, and it might be 2 windings but they're in series, or 4 windings in series, which gives you 2 phase. Or you might look at it and say, wow, there's 6 windings. Well, chances are if there's 6 windings, there's 2 and 2 and 2, which gives you your 3 phase. or maybe there's 9, 3 and 3 and 3, which give you your 3-phase power. The more phases, the more power you get out of it. A single phase like that thing, I don't know, what are those light bulbs good for? 25 watts each. Call it 50 watts for that. The more phases you have, you know, you get 75, 100 watts out of it, and you kind of need that to keep a battery charged and run the lights, and especially if you're starting to put auxiliary outlets on there. Well, yeah, you probably get closer to a couple 100 watts out of it, like for the big reds with the 3-phase on it, because typically they tell you can pull 10 amps off of it. So if you're pulling 10 amps for that and another 10 amps for the lights, right, that's your you know, 250 watts, give or take a little bit. All right, if anybody has any other questions on that, I'm specifically answering the question for a 200X with a very simple lighting circuit. Probably I would start checking the grounds for the lights. I would put a battery charger on it just as I did, or, you know, jumper it with a car battery and all that, and check it out. Do not, by the way, do not, please do not put your battery charger between the across the stator, so from this wire that comes out of the engine to ground, because then you're going to be putting 12 volts across less than an ohm. You know, you're if it was 1 ohm, you're looking at 12 amps. At a half a ohm, you're looking at 24 amps. At a quarter ohm, you're looking at 50 amps. I'd basically tell you what you're going to do is, if your stator isn't already bad, after a second or two, it probably will be. So don't do that. Please don't do that. And if you do it, don't ping me and say I told you to, because I'm telling you not to do that. Don't do that. I would, if I were troubleshooting this, I'd start scratching my head and wondering about ground, because as you looked at this wire harness, right, you're not looking at any grounds. The only ground is engine to body. Though you were telling me that it was running, and given that it was running, there must have been enough ground to run the ignition system. But still, I'd start sniffing at grounds, assuming the light bulbs are good, the sockets are making proper contact, your on and off switch is actually working like an on and off switch. And just go, you know, nice and slow, go forward. If I were a betting man, I've seen on and off switches go bad. I've seen on and off switches for the engine go bad, and I've seen lighting on and off switches go bad. So assuming your light bulbs are good, and assuming your stator didn't cook, your electrical stator, I've yet to see an electrical stator go bad. But, you know, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I just haven't seen one. So my thoughts are, if I were to start sniffing at this, I'd be wondering how strong the ground is between my engine and the body. I would probably run an extra wire. I don't know. Perhaps take like this bolt out, clean it up really good, get a wire, hook it from there to, I don't know, clean this up good, or, you know, clean up something really well and make sure you got a nice ground to the body. For the headlight particularly, I mean, you're going through the handlebars here, and I mean, where you're picking up ground off the coil into the wire harness. I would, once again, I would be thinking about ground, really thinking about it. For the tail light, do they still have the wires, or did they cut them? Where's the tail light wires? They're not even here anymore. Right, that's not a taillight wire. They must have, no. Here's the taillight wire. The taillight wire does have a ground, both of them to it. So I would just make sure that green wire there is really well hooked up to the case, right? You gotta, the same potential as the case, right? Alright folks, I want to thank you all for watching and commenting and subscribing. I hope this video was helpful. Remember to keep your feet down, keep your head up, and guys, get out there and enjoy all your days. Once again, thanks for all the support, and have fun. Enjoy your time. Bye now.